Good evening, everybody. Fortunately, I don't speak as well English as Reese does, but if anything is unclear, please let me know. As said, Stogger, more and more people get to know us, and I must say it's great that 5 months ago we had the idea to organize an event to bring the market together, and we are super happy that so many people showed up, and we hope that this can create a new movement in the market. I want to talk about light today, but before I talk about light, I shortly introduce our company to you. I tell a short story about it, and then I go on to the subject. I have a short video for you.
Founded in 2016, Stogger is a dynamic company with around 30 employees, serving 4 main market segments: Stogger Controls, Turf Care, Signage, and Innovation Services. Stogger Controls leads the global horticulture market in wireless lighting control, illuminating over 500 football fields worth of crops. This helps growers optimize crop management and energy efficiency, promoting sustainable cultivation. Stogger Turf Care provides advanced turf maintenance solutions for top football clubs like KRC Genk and FC Basel. Their lighting systems keep pitches in peak condition year-round, improving playability and turf quality. Stogger handles everything in-house, from design and production to customer support and sales. The company has recently moved to a state-of-the-art facility in the high-tech Brainport region of the Netherlands, fostering innovation and supporting its continued growth.
So that's a short introduction. 2 things I would like to highlight. Since 2018, we have a exclusive cooperation with Mechatronics. Mechatronics is one of the top sellers of grow lights in the market, often competing with Philips, which is a bit more well known. And over the last years, they sold over 150,000 grow lights, and we as a company profit from that. We supply them with a wireless LED control system, so we can wirelessly control the light, dim the light, change light settings, change light channels to customize light to what the plant needs. We were asked in 2020 by a local professional football club if we could also design a lighting system for them. By that time it was quite common that it would be a high pressure sodium light, the yellow light, but due to our cooperation, the good results and the proven profits from LED technology, we decided to design a LED grow light rig. In the end we sold it, we supplied it to them, and we saw good results, and we received a lot of compliments, and that was the reason why we said, we probably have something. So over the last 4 years, we started off with that one booster to completing our product range from small grow light rigs to one of the largest in the market, which is now here on the pitch. And additionally, we are working also on autonomy, and we are working on a UVC robot with LED technology, not to grow the pitch, but to prevent disease and disease pressure. We have grown to 32 people over the past years, and it goes quite fast at the moment. Half of our team are engineers, so mechanical, electrical, software engineers. We also have production staff. We design our own products, we manufacture our own products, and we sell our own products. And we do this together with strong local market parties. And we are looking forward. We have just entered our new facility, state-of-the-art, in the southeast region of the Brainport in the Netherlands. And this must be a facilitation to facilitate our growth, basically. So, enough about Stogger. Now we are starting talking about light. Light, it's TurfTech, so I want to talk about technology and what light does for turf. You see here 2 pictures, basics, key process in plant growth. On the left you see the photosynthesis process, which is basically photosynthesis is triggered by light, carbon dioxide and water, and that converts that into sugars and oxygen. And that happens during the day. At night, cellular respiration occurs. It's basically a bit of the opposite. So the sugars produced during the day, they are used for basically growth and new generation of damage incurred during the day. So not all sugars are used directly, so it is important to understand that a healthy plant keeps some of the sugar inside, which it can use in a later stage. This picture is a microscopic picture of a grass leaf showing 3 stomata. And basically, a stomata is an important thing because it's basically your mouth. And if you open your mouth, you can breathe. And the stomata allow the turf to enter the CO2 for the photosynthesis process, but also to get the oxygen out. And that is not only important for the photosynthesis process, but it's also a way for the turf to respirate. So if, for example, the turf feels uncomfortable because a cool season grass cannot handle heat that well, then it wants to get away of this heat, and then it starts transpirating. It can transpirate to the roots, but it also can transpirate to the leaves, and therefore the stomata must be open. It's important to know that if you want to light a pitch, it only the light will only benefit growth well if the plant is healthy and the stomata open. For example, if a turf perceives stress, for example due to drought, then stomata are being closed to keep all the water inside. And once it keeps the water inside, it doesn't want to grow, it wants to survive. So shining light on a plant at that moment doesn't make a good use of the light energy. If we look at sunlight, sunlight is a very huge, broad range of electromagnetic energy. A small part of that energy we can see. We perceive it as visible light, and you see the colors of that visible light. If we then look to humans, how do we perceive light with our eyes? And if we look at this chart, you can see in the middle, about 555 nanometers, there's the peak sensitivity of the human eye for light. This peak is located in the middle, and the green, yellow light. So if you would see a green, yellow light, for example, high pressure sodium light, you will perceive it as very bright. But if you look at red and blue light, if the light has the same energy, you will perceive it as much less bright, and you would think that it's less there, so to say. If we then take a look on how plants perceive light, that's very different, because we were just focusing on this 555 nanometers here in the middle, but we can see that plants processes and pigments using, for example, chlorophyll pigments, transforming the photons it receives into growth and energy. They are most sensitive to, for example, blue light here on the 450 nanometers. You also see a lot of sensitivity here in the 660 nanometers and some sensitivity on the 720 nanometers. That's called the far red, the blue, and here in the middle you see a little bit of sensitivity, but not that much. We call it the white spectrum, because a mixture between those colors, the human eye perceives it as white light. If we then take a look at the traditional light source in the market, which was, until short, I would say, the high pressure sodium light, and you look at what is this light source emitting, then you will see a huge peak here on the outside, which is basically heat. A big part of the light emitted by a high pressure sodium light is heat. If you then take a look on the visible light spectrum, which is between the 700 and 400 nanometers, then you will see that the biggest peak is between, it's around 550 nanometers, yellow, greenish light. That's also how you, if you look at a HPS light, you will see this color of light, and yeah, that's the peak. However, if you compare this chart of light emitted and you look on what does plant do with this light, you will see that a lot of energy is not very efficiently used. Yes, between the 500 and 600 nanometers, the plant uses this energy, but it reflects quite a lot. However, you see here a very small amount of blue light, but yeah, the plant is very sensitive to blue light. So, for example, to create a dense crop with good leaves, that's not really present in a high pressure sodium light. You will see that it wants to generative growth. You get a more lengthy growth and less dense growth, but we want to create a compact, dense turf pitch. If we compare HPS to LEDs, then we see that LEDs, you can buy them basically in a LED bin, and that basically means the light emitted by that LED can be selected, and typically within the horticulture turf market, those LEDs are developed specifically to target these peaks, because that's where plant uses this energy most efficiently. So if you then talk about an LED fixture, then typically we try to include all these LEDs to create a light recipe, so to say, and to target the efficiency. But if you then take a look at, okay, but the 660 nanometers, it's much more sensitivity for the plant compared to the 500 and 600 nanometers, then you will understand why typically there are much more red LEDs and blue LEDs included in a light recipe compared to the middle spectrum, because that's not very efficient. Also, if you take into consideration the efficiency of both light sources, you will see that of the 100% of kilowatts energy you put into a light, only 39% of that light is emitted. 39% of that energy is emitted as light for the plant to grow, compared to the 64% with an LED. This shows that from a light point of view, an LED is typically 60 to 80% more efficient in generating growth. Of course, we all know that heat is needed, especially in the climates where we are now, but ideally we control heat, because if you always provide a lot of heat to turf, then you will get difficulties, for example, tip burn, in periods of the year when the temperatures are reasonably well. Yeah, we know that there's a trend towards lighting pitches earlier in the year to get a better patch later in the year. And yeah, that is definitely a limitation for if you use an HPS light source, because you basically can't give more light energy to the pitch, because you will experience problems. LED fixtures. So if you think about buying a grow light rig, in the end you buy a light fixture on a carrier. Of course, the carrier is very important, but also the light, because in the end you're lighting the pitch. And what we here try to do is to explain you some basics on how to evaluate light fixtures. So you probably heard of micromoles. We have a light that comes into our eye, human light that can be seen by humans. We typically call that lumens, but the plant looks at the photons that it counts, and that's called in micromoles. So here you can see basically an LED that's emitting light, and the amount of light which it emits is called the photosynthetic photon flux, the ppf value, in micromoles. So you basically buy micromoles. After that, if you install the light above the pitch, you have to divide it over the surface. So that's when the photosynthetic photon flux density, so the density of the amount of photons you're targeting at the glass. Those are important values because that's basically what you're buying. That's how you're lighting the pitch. That is what's generating and driving the growth. The grass can handle quite high amounts of light. So yeah, that's why it's an important value. If you buy a light fixture, or if you compare light fixtures, they're not all the same. LED manufacturers produce, for example, a red LED dye, so to say. But obviously everybody wants to have the best, the one that is giving me the most red light for the lowest amount of energy. Unfortunately, that's not the case. That's called LED binning. In a production batch of LEDs, you will have binning, and the top binning, they have the highest efficiency, and the bottom binning, they have the lowest efficiency. That's a very important thing to remember, that not all light fixtures have the same light output. There are quite some differences in the market. If you then look at light, I have a LED engine here in my arm, and the LED engine here consists of basically the light recipe. So you can say red LEDs, yellow ones, white ones. There are suppliers that allow, for example, if you buy today a fixture, that the technology of LEDs will evolve. The efficiency comes higher every year. Then there are suppliers like Mechatronics that offer the possibility to remove the LED engines and to replace them in a later stage if you want to have the latest technology, the latest efficiency. So also, if we take a look at how is this light distributed, so you have the PPFD, the light coming out, but in the end you want to create a homogeneous light output, because that's the best for growth. Otherwise all the light would be below the LED, and there would be a hotspot. There you would have very good grass growth, and there hardly any light. So it's important to know that there are basically two choices. One, there are LED manufacturers that work with plastic molded lenses, and there are LED manufacturers that work with glass lenses. The difference being is that plastic molded lenses typically absorb a part of the light. Glass does it also, but much less. So there's a big differences in light absorption and light emittance from a plastic molded lens compared to a glass lens. Secondly, glass stays stable over the years, but plastic can deteriorate and become less transparent over the time, or can get a little bit blackish due to burning of the high temperatures in the LED. If you then take a look at LED lifetime, it's also an important factor to take into consideration. This is a LED engine, And if I would put electricity on this, it would start burning. So you have a lamp. So then the question is, why don't you just take this? There are two factors which influence the lifetime of this LED engine. That is one, moisture, so there should not come water on the LEDs or moisture on the LEDs, because then it will break over time. The second one is heat. What a lot of people don't know is that if you don't cool an LED properly, the heat will go up very fast, and it can easily go up to 130 degrees Celsius. If the temperature goes up to 130 degrees Celsius, or in the chart 105, then you will see that the lifetime in hours decreases significantly. So if you have the same LED engines, but one is properly cooled and it doesn't run warmer than 45 degrees centigrade compared to the other one, which is not properly cooled and it runs warm to 105 centigrades, lifetime is 10% of this one. Secondly, not only lifetime is influenced, but also the luminous flux output, so the amount of photons that's coming out. So if LEDs run warm, the output becomes less. So for the same energy, you will get less light, less growth earlier. So that's basically what you don't want. You want maximum output during the lifetime of the LED for a long enough period. If you then take a look at such a light fixture, then you probably understand why it's not half of the size, or it's made more compact, because that's often the trade-off people make, just to make the cooling body smaller. It's cheaper, so you can offer it at lower cost, but in the end you compromise somewhere and you lose on lifetime. There are also suppliers that have ventilators on the LED fixtures. Ventilators is a way to force wind over, for example, a thin aluminium plate or extrusion profile to cool the LEDs. In essence, that's okayish, but the problem with that is that often the fans don't last that long. So once they break, you don't notice it. It's called an active cooling system, but you don't know when it's active and when it's not. And it can be clogged. It can't handle moisture too well. So typically active cooled LED fixtures have a much shorter lifetime compared to passively cooled, like the fixture above. And yeah, that's influencing lifetime. Another thing is power supplies. So in the stadium here is 400 volts, but you don't put 400 volts on this LED engine, it will instantly break. You have a power supply for that, and the power supply makes from high power, low power, basically, and you can control the light output. Typically, depending on the fixture, the lifetime of a power supply is between 3 to 7 years. And for example, this fixture has a lifetime of, or at least a warranty of 10 years. So what happens if the power supply breaks and it's being built in the fixture? Normally you take 4 screws, throw it away in the bin and buy a new one. In this case, if the power supply is separate, you have a modular system. You can simply replace the power supply and make sure the light runs again. So, how does the future look if you look at the lighting? Till today, high pressure sodium lights are for sale. They might be banned soon, but as far as I know, it's not official yet. Their efficiency has come to 2 micromoles per joule. So micromoles is the value what plant sees. That has been a development of over 60 years. It's a light fixture which is developed in the 1960s, originally as a street lamp, but later on became very popular in horticulture because people discovered that plants can grow well under these lights. And by that time they were very energy efficient in creating that light. At the same time, the LED development has not stood still, and efficiency increased significantly. Next year, for the same amount of energy, you can get twice the light output with an LED unit compared to an HPS source. If we then take a look at the future, and it's not only efficiency gains what has been improved. Additionally, we also see a trend, or it's not a trend anymore, it's happening, from a fixed light spectrum, on off or dimmable, to a dynamic, controllable light spectrum. And the reason being is that it benefits plant health, yield, and therefore, of these 150,000 lights, 99% has been sold as a controllable light fixture. It's been backed by a lot of university research. And today, we have a 3-channel dynamic light spectrum, so we can control 3 individual colors or a mixture of colors based on 3 lines. Next year, in the market will be introduced a 4-channel light, and this 4-channel light will give full freedom to grow turf in the way it needs to grow. And just to give you an example of why a dynamic light spectrum could be beneficial, for example, during the day, white light is present. We just seen that the plant absorbs white light, not that efficient. But we typically put, for example, white light in the recipe. So if you detect daylight and the light level comes at a specific value that you know sufficient light, white light is present, then you can, for example, switch off the white light. You can put more energy into, for example, the red and blue mixture, and you can more efficiently steer on growth. Same in the morning, we want to open stomata to start the photosynthesis process effectively. In that case, we, for example, can add some heat, if it's cold, for the plant to open the stomata. And for example, you can add some blue far red light to stimulate root growth and to get the photosynthesis process started. And for example, after 30 minutes, you can start adding also the main channels, the red and the blue, in higher levels to optimize growth and to lower your energy cost and basically to more efficiently steer on growth. Last but not least, next year another 18% of yield improvements compared to today are introduced in the LED market. So we are very sure that this multiple channel light control is a true game changer, and that's the way forward to give full freedom and flexibility to grow grass in the most effective and efficient way. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm curious if somebody has questions.
One for me.
One for me.
Where do you keep your, how do you get warmth? You're talking about warmth in the morning. Where do you get this warmth from?
Yeah, so as you just have seen, the question is, where do we get warmth from? So in the climate where we are now in, with cold winter, so to say, you need some warmth to activate plant process and photosynthesis, to basically open the stomata, otherwise plant will be closed, nothing's happening. That is why we add typically next to the LED fixture, you can steer on a bit far red, but that will not bring that much. We add typically infrared heaters. Infrared heaters are just like HPS sources, very efficient in creating heat, not so efficient in creating light, but this combination is critical. And then you might ask yourself, okay, but what am I saving then if I need the infrared heaters? But thing being is that, for example, in one of our booster light rigs where we have all the measuring devices inside, we can see that often only very small parts of the day this extra heat is needed outside of, for example, the winter. So you just need a few hours, maybe in the morning, to add some heat, and then the rest of the day you can leave it off. The energy is not wasted, and you have your heat, but you don't need it constantly. If you would like to do it for the light, don't use heat to light your turf.
I have only two questions. The first one, you don't need white light.
I didn't say that. Sorry, the question was, you don't need white light. Yeah, you need white light. For deeper crop penetration. And in literature, if you look into that, it's often said that, for example, grass does not need green light. But often that claim is again confirmed that that's not totally true. So maybe Koen can add something to that?
You need a mic?
If possible. Koen is CEO of Mechatronics, our lighting supplier.
You're absolutely right. When you say, do we need green light? No, not when you are doing 180 or 200 micromoles on the turf. Not needed, because in that case you are just supplementing. But it's when you're going higher and higher in your light levels. So when you're stretching to the maximum production what you can do on grass. And be careful, we always, because what do we install now? 180, 200 micromoles of high pressure sodium or 300 micromoles of LED. But on laboratory level we go actually up to 800, 900 micromoles already. And we are still having linear production of grass. That means still the same efficiency. Why can't we bring it into the practice yet? The same like in the greenhouses. Because we don't get our grass stable. And what does stable mean indeed? A balance between photosynthesis and respiration. And we are missing respiration, mainly. So what does green do? When you are stretching to the higher light levels, it balances out, or it gets your grass easier into plant balance. It goes deeper, but not deeper by the same effect like far red. Far red also goes deep, but that's because of physics, because of the wavelength. So far red actually, we didn't use far red on grass until a half a year ago, because we only had fixed spectrums, and continuous far red actually gave a generative growth. And we don't want generative growth, we want vegetative growth. We want short, compact, thick grass. We don't want seed production. Green does go deeper in the canopy than blue and red. And that's actually because it's not initially absorbed. That's the main reason. But the same like you have learned from the roses and from other crops, for example, from cucumbers, green does go deep in that crop, deeper into the rooting system also. And that does actually balance out a little bit what we are missing from the red and the blue. You can also do it with far red, but you will see you have also the negative effects from the far red, and that stretch from the grass, the generative part. So green in general, when you are going to heavy systems, let's say 350, 400 micromoles, you will see in the deepest winter weeks, typically from middle of December until middle of January, it does help you for a very good grass balance.
Second question, what's the maximum lighting components?
Oh, depends how much light you have again. I just heard the same from, what was it, Brugge? 24 hours the last weeks, they are doing. No, absolutely, you're right. I see the head shaking. No, it's not okay, of course not. Like you have seen in one of the first slides, you need to fixate your carbon in the daytime, but you also need your rest hours. Typically, I would say 20 hours. But the less light you have available, the more you're going to use it. But 24 hours absolutely is kind of dangerous. I wouldn't do it for a lot of reasons. You will also see, by the way, that when you light with higher light levels and then with continuous days, that actually your disease pressure is going up.
Yeah, plant health. Another question.
Sometimes we have seen on stadiums that you get a kind of etiolation, you get these white leaves, especially in ryegrasses. There are some people saying that it might be something that we see when we have the LED light. Do you have any experience with that?
You mean you see this under the LED lights?
The grass suddenly, some of the leaves, especially in the ryegrass, become white.
Yeah, exactly. Typically can be explained as I wouldn't say an intolerance. You see the same, this maybe sounds very weird, guys, but...
Come on the stage.
Thank you. Sounds maybe weird, but that knowledge actually comes from the cannabis field. Cannabis is lighted with super high light levels, and there you see the same thing, this white kind of decoloring of the leaf. And that's actually also compensated by the green. One of your very early slides was showing something. The reflection, much more about the sensitivity curves.
It's not going fast.
Yeah, sensitivity curves. Yeah, that's fine. There are three things actually. One is actually missing over here. And you have your chlorophyll, your sugars, you have your phytochromes, which are mainly giving you the morphology of the grass. You don't want your far red to go over your red because that means I'm in the shadow, I'm going to stretch. But there is something else. There are also stuff like in the cannabis. How do they make higher THC in the plant? Actually by stressing the plant. And those stress factors are mainly indulged in this area here. You have the carotenoids as one of them, but there is also another one, it's not published here, which is in the area around green, around 500 nanometers. So what you there see is actually in deficit of the grass. When you would analyze it, when you would bring it to a lab, you would truly see that some pigments are actually too low, mainly the carotenes. Yeah. Easiest way, bring it in. It's actually not expensive. It costs an average test in the University of Genk of grass costs around €1,000. So if you do see this kind of effects, it's quite easy to get it analyzed. So again there, I would say more blue. Probably what you have done is an overfeeding of the chlorophyll A and not enough balance on the blue, not enough on the blue, which is not only giving chlorophyll, but where you also have your carotenes. Same, by the way, in food production. 5% of blue, most of the time when you go high light level, too low. You have to go vegetative, that means 10-15% of blue. Okay, any other questions? One advice I could always give you, for the future, always aim for dynamic light controls. And it's not just to save energy. I know energy is important, but the main thing what you're gonna see is that what you get out of it, what you get out of your production, because you are producing grass at that moment, is much higher than what you have with a compromise, let's say, with a fixed spectrum. We are doing very deep research with Colruyt. The Belgian people will know Colruyt, one of our biggest supermarkets in Europe. We are doing a lot of research in Colruyt and in the University of Ghent. And more in the last 2 years, we start to learn that what we were doing 3-4 years ago was okay, but far from perfect. We were reaching quite okay results, mainly because we were giving more light for less energy, but the plants were actually not in balance. You see that mainly in the night hours, in the daytime with the extra sun on it, with the extra so many joules or watts from the sun, we were quite okay. But in the long days, when we were lighting in the nighttime, and the same is happening with grass, by the way, plants was not in balance. Respiration was too low. Everybody can say the same, yeah, LED, no heat, but what is heat? Heat is nothing more than indulging the evaporation, making sure the stomata are open. So make sure in the future, whatever you do, the brand doesn't matter, but make sure that you go in the direction of the ability of dynamic lighting, so that in 3-4 years you are still okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.